I've used it, but I've never gone back and looked at the details of it. But this may be able to give us a transcript of any part that we want also. Okay, so I've got that going. We've got it recording a transcript as well. We'll see. This is an experiment for all of us. I've used Google Meet for several things, and I've recorded the transcript, but we'll see what happens with it. All right, so you were thinking about the entrance. What's if you could, we're gonna do this in a little bit different order, and then I'm gonna let you just talk. If you were giving me a 1 or 2 minute summary of the message from that chapter that you would want people to walk away from, if they only know that chapter of your life story, what is the message and what's the spiritual connotation of that message that you could give me in a minute or two?
I'm thinking about mental health, how incident or situations like that can affect your mental health for a long time. You understand what I'm saying? Because although I was with a lot of people, we had orientation the freshman year, I was still lonely. And loneliness can lead to depression and you not be aware of it.
And
And
in your life, how has that impacted you? You got a realization from now looking backwards. How did that impact you coming through that experience and then going into life with that baggage?
yeah, it impacted me in a way that I developed mental health issues and didn't realize that I was developing mental health issues based on that experience. And I give you a
Okay.
freshman year orientation. Well, prior to uh, the orientation time, we enrolled in Newberry College or applied to Newberry College as part of a dare to my grandmother. And my grandmother, who was very, very strict, wanted me to enroll in either Benedict or Allen, and I wanted to go to South Carolina State, Johnson C. Smith, or Spelman. And there was nothing wrong with Benedict Allen, but I knew she would be there every day. She would catch a ride, a bus, or something. And you never knew what time. And I knew she would come at the time I would be talking. We could be having a group study. But if there was a male there, if there was a male presence, that's not what she saw it as. And I knew what her reaction would be. And so I candidly said to her, well, if I got to camp on your doorstep, I might as well stay in your house. So I will enroll in Newberry College. Well, there was no way that I would have been accepted because in my mind, I was from the wrong side of the tracks. And in her mind, too, who you think gonna take you at Newberry College? I mean, we just made it a joke. No, yeah. So I did apply. And lo and behold, when we were about to concede to each other, um, we sent, talked to the guidance counselor and said, well, we changed our minds, well, we didn't think the application was there anyway. And next thing we knew, the representatives from the college was knocking on our door. And they said, we hoping that you would reconsider and enroll. And my grandmother said, no, she can't go by herself. He said, well, that'd be 10. There'll be 9 others and 10 altogether. So that's how I came up with the concept. Where are the other 9? Because when I arrived for orientation, I looked around. I said, okay, where are they? Where are they? So I'm thinking, well, they're here somewhere. So what I decided to do was to sit in the 4th row on the left side in the first seat. And when everybody started coming in, they sat 3 rows behind me on both sides of the aisle. And then there were 3 empty rows in front of me on both sides of the aisle. There were 6 empty rows, except in the chair that I was sitting in. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, am I in the wrong area? Is this reserved for somebody special? But anyway, to make a long story short, we're in the president addressing the freshman class. So nobody says anything to me. So I said, well, I'm just going to stay here and see what happens. And I'm trying to recall, I don't think he ever said my name. I think he said we have a new experience this year. And we're not going to ask her to stand. So I'm saying to myself, I think it's obvious what the new experience is. You don't have to ask me to stand. I've got 6 empty rows, uh, on both sides of the aisle. And so we continue, finish with the orientation. And I was so excited. I said, well, now I'll get to see the others. Got up, went outside, looked around. Okay. They're just late coming. Maybe they're not coming today, but they just had a difficult time. Or maybe not. They just, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they're out of state students, so they haven't finished up everything. So they're coming maybe next week or maybe 3 or 4 days ahead of us. So anyway, a young lady by the name of Christian Vaverin, she told me, she walked over to me and she said to me, she said, I'm accustomed to people of color. She said, my father is in the service. And she said, you're going to be all right. And she gave me a hug, and that perked me up. That made me feel so much better that she took that opportunity and that time to make me feel comfortable, because she could tell I was beginning to get uncomfortable. Because, like I said, I was expecting the other students, the other 9 Black students, to come up. While I'm sitting there in orientation, I'm saying to myself, well, they're sitting in the back of the auditorium. That's what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
So the day goes by, and Christine stays with me. She stayed with me during the entire time until it's time for us to leave to go home. So that was that experience. I don't how I got through it. I really don't remember. No, but like I said, I believe Christine helped me. I knew she did, because I've had the feeling, I really don't want to be a part of this. So as time goes by, I began to ask the academic dean, and I asked him, I said, you know, I, you said there was going to be 10 of us, and where are the other 9? And he said, oh, we changed our mind. We're going to wait and see what happens to you first. I said, oh, no, no, no. That's not what you explained to my grandmother and me. You said that give it a month. And one of the things they said was, when they was talking to us, with the other 9 children, she'll have a chance to interact with students from other places and still be at home. I said, I remember you saying that to my grandmother. That's why we reconsidered and decided to let me attend. So he said, well, no, we have to wait and see what happens to you. And again, I'm going like, I don't think so. So I said, well, now, you all told us that if I weren't satisfied or didn't feel comfortable, that I could leave. He said, oh, no, no, you can't transfer. I said, oh, yes, I can. I said, I don't know why I can't transfer. He said, you're in a position wherein you have to stay. And at that time, I did not know, understand the reason that I was really there. I thought that it was because they were accepting diversity. But later, we learned that the college was about to go bankrupt. All the old money had died out. The children at that time were not putting their money into college. They did not have sentimental values. And the college had taken every step possible to stay open. Finally, they had to apply for federal funding. And one of the requirements for federal funding was diversity. And they had to meet two criteria. They had to have a person of color. At that time, we went as Black. And they had to have more females on campus. So they got all that criteria met in one person. And so, like I said, at protesting, and then they just came out and told me, if you leave, you will not receive a collegiate education. You nor your descendants. And I'm saying, how can you do that? I said, how, you don't have any control over Black colleges. And they said, yes, we do. And you got to remember now, this was 1966. So they were the powers to be. And after pleading, crying, begging, I mean, I tried to recall where we were. And finally, I had to make a choice. I had to think about myself, or I had to think about my people, my family. When you think about your children, your grandchildren not going to college because your little pride was hurt, that's a difficult decision. So I decided, I prayed. I was 17 years old, just 17. And I prayed. I said, God, please help me to make the right decision. I said, because I am the first. I am the first in the family to even graduate high school. So now here I am attending a prestigious all white male dominated college. Ooh, what a weight. That was the world on your shoulders. And if I walk away, then my family line, my descendants won't be able to attend college. So I realized I had to put on my big girl drawers and pull them up and do what I had to do. Just keep praying. Just pray. So my freshman year, um, it it was bittersweet. As I said, Christine helped a lot by her being there. But then guess what? Because she was military, she called herself a military brat. And because she was a military brat, guess what? She was being transferred again because daddy was moving. And so I'm saying to myself, okay, now what am I going to do? And I guess this must have occurred after being there for about a week or 2 weeks. And so finally, another person came to me. Her name was Nancy Dennis, Nancy Seal at the time. And she came to me and she was real sweet. She said, I'm Nancy Seal. She said, I'm accustomed to being around Black people. She was from Charleston, South Carolina. She said, they asked me to be your monitor, your mentor. So I said, okay. And she gave me the key to her room. She said, here's the key to my room. Uh, Anytime you need to rest between classes, you're more than welcome. And that just perked me up. I said, oh, thank you, Jesus. Thank God. I won't have to be here by myself. And I worked in the library with the work study as the work study program. And they were very nice. Like I said, I tell people it was bittersweet, but more sweet than bitter. But the bitter was so toxic. Just that little bit of bitter. Another thing that happened to me during my freshman year was I was date raped. I could not believe it on my 18th birthday. And at that time, there was no such thing as date rape. You know, it was always the woman's fault. Had no business being there. So the day it happened was the day I thought about committing suicide. And God just guided me. And that was to call my best friend, who had been my best friend since third grade. And I called her, and she tells the story now. She said when she found me, I was curled up like a ball in the fetal position under a set of steps. And I wouldn't tell her what had happened. All I knew, she said, I was saying, I want to leave. I want to get out of here. And she talked to me and she told me, she said, I can't take you out there. I just wanted to leave. When that happened, it just shattered me. It just took everything. I mean, I could tolerate being the only one there for a minute, but that was something that was sacred to me. And finally, she convinced me to go to class and, I would be all right. But the suicidal thoughts came, what if you're pregnant? Because there was nothing. And I remember when the incident happened, while it was happening, I mean, he came to me and told me that we were going out to lunch. Zesto was just up the street. And so, 17, it's your birthday, you're excited, and you finally got somebody on the campus that looks like you. So, of course. And he said, well, we're going out to dinner afterwards. And I'm just so excited. And when that happened, when we passed the Zesto, I said, oh, he's taking me to somewhere special. We're not going to the Zesto. And the place where he stopped, I had no idea what that place was, didn't know anything. And then I struggled, pleaded, cried, begged, but it didn't stop him. But when he realized I was a virgin, and it was quite evident, he sort of didn't quite say I'm sorry, but I think he felt a little guilty. And he brought me back, but after that, it just wasn't all right. I mean, who could you tell? The woman always, you had no business getting in the car with him. And there was no such thing, like I said, as date rape. Men, they own women. That's your boyfriend. And later, you know, he explained that he thought he was doing the right thing. That was his birthday present to me. But he didn't ask me, did I want that birthday present? He just thought that you don't know what you want. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And after that, I couldn't date him. I could ever trust him. I felt so violated because that was something that belonged to me that God gave to me. I had the choice of when I would give it to somebody else. So he took that choice away from me. And as I said, I contemplated suicide because here I am, first Black that they ever admitted, and then she gets pregnant. Can you imagine? But God guided me again and said, wait and see if the little red lady show up. Don't do it now. Just wait. And sure enough, but I had it planned. I walked my freshman year to school from my house. And someday it's in the book as the distance from my house where I lived with my grandmother to Newberry College. And I had it planned that I was going to be walking. And when the time came, I'm just going to walk in the front of a car. I was going to walk on the wrong side of the road. I had it all planned, not facing the cars like you're supposed to. And I wasn't going to even think about it. I was just going to jump out in front of the car. That was the way I planned it. But like I said, God intervened. And I'm so glad I listened to her. I'm so glad I listened. But things like that, it was a long time before people used to ask me to describe my experience at Newberry College. And I couldn't describe it because, like I said, as sweet as there were in the bittersweet, things like that, it said there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And you can talk about the good, You can talk about the bad, but sometimes that ugliness, you just can't talk about it. It happened. You can't do anything about it. It's over with. Move forward. And yet you feel that you need to talk about it so that it doesn't happen to anyone else. And I suppressed that for a long, long time. I'm 75 years old, and it still bothers me at the age of 75. I'm trying to think. Like I said, there was more sweet than bitter. But for 3 years on that campus, they really did not admit another African American, male or female. And my senior year, but I would tell myself, let me share this, each year, and this was another way I was able to get through the situation. I would say, well, they're coming. They're coming. Freshman year, I said, well, they're coming. Maybe this semester. That is one thing that helped me to go through this was the fact that somebody's going to come. And they did. They came when I was a senior and they were freshmen. And they had to come because at that time, HEW, which was the Office for Civil Rights now, were on campus. They came to visit. And I think the administrators thought that they only had to show an attempt at diversity. But HEW said, no, you have to sustain, maintain diversity in order to get, don't show us that they wanted to say, well, we had a person on campus and she graduated. And so we're making the effort. We're making the effort. And so um, one thing I do recall is this was my senior year. I knew what real power was. I had so much power at that particular time. As I said, HEW came on campus to review the situation. The president, Dr. A.G.D. Wiles, my 4 years there, and he was a good president, but he was very conservative. And he would always watch out for me. I would see him watching me and, making sure I was all right. That particular week, and that was another thing, they thought that HEW was just going to be there for a day. And they found out HEW was going to be there for a week. And guess who they were going to interview? Yes. So I didn't know anything about it until that Monday. I worked in the library, as I said, and we all had the same type of duties. And one of the duties that everybody had and shared was to vacuum the floors, the carpet. So it was my time this particular day. And guess what? They told me for 1 week, I only had to sit behind the desk. I was not, when I went to get the vacuum cleaner, the librarian rushed up to me. She said, oh, no, 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 you're not going to vacuum that. I said, why? I said, it's my turn. No, you're going to stay behind the desk. You're not going to dust. I mean, these are the different types of things we had to do for work study. Wasn't just with the books. But that particular week, all I had to do was sit behind that desk. So I said, okay. During that week, the president asked me to come got word to me to ask me to come to his office. I said, oh my God, what did I do? The president wanted to see me. I'm thinking expulsion, but I don't know why. What did I do? What did I say? And I not only entered the office, but in his private office. I never will forget that black chair and those red drapes behind his black chair. And he asked me to sit, and I did. And he said, we got HEW. health, education, and welfare. And I'm thinking, well, what does that have to do with me? And he explained to me that they were going to interview me and find out how, what kind of experience did I have. So he said, well, do you know what you're going to say? I said, no, sir. And kept saying to myself, oh my God, I really don't want to talk to them because I really don't want to tell them how I really felt, you know. And something just kept reassuring me. And so, sure enough, when they interviewed me, they asked me, did I know, could I explain why I was the only Black person on that campus for 3 years? And I started to say what was told to me. I said, well, sir, you'll have to ask them. I said, let them explain. And I thought about it prior to the interview. I said, Lord, should I tell the truth or should I just keep my mouth shut? And the thought came to me that said, if you speak the truth, then they may lose funding and you're going to be denied access to a lot of students, especially the students who live in Newberry. You're going to be denying them access. Then another thought came and said, if you don't tell how you feel or what you experience, and if somebody gets hurt on this campus or get killed, then you got to live with that. And finally, the decision was, what right do I have to deny other people access? They have to go through the same thing that I went through. It's their right. And like I said, I didn't offer or volunteer any information that would jeopardize the funding. I had to make that decision, but still there was that loneliness. I still couldn't tell anybody really. I just suppressed it and kept suppressing it. And when I graduated, I promised myself I would never set foot on that campus again. I mean, I had done my duty. I had served the time. I didn't want to have anything to do with it because one, they lied to us to get me on that campus. And then once I got on the campus, it was like I didn't have a choice. I had to stay and do what they asked me to do. And and there were times no one ever really physically touched me, but when you mess with the mind and there are no witnesses that can hear what's being said to you or see what's been done to you mentally. And I'll give you two examples. Freshman year, we had an afternoon game, football game, and I wanted to participate in everything that we had on the campus. I didn't want any special attention, etc. So I walked to this game. I suppose I had a date, but he didn't show. So I said, well, I'm going to the game anyway. And I walked to the game. And I finally got there and was enjoying the game. And I heard this comment, get that damn nigger. Well, there were only three of us, and two were playing football. So you know who the third one was. And the classmate, his name was Paul Hardwick. He walked over to me and he said, don't pay them any attention. They're just talking about the guys on the field. And they were. And in my mind, I sort of halfway. But then I thought, well, suppose, because we were losing, I believe we were losing the game. And I said, Lord, I got to walk back home by myself. And it was like a voice said, I got you. You're going to be all right. And when I got ready to walk home, I got to my grandmother's house safely. Another incident, fresh, junior, senior year, speech class. The professor was calling the roll, and one gentleman's head was buried in his arms. And the professor said, "You all right?" He said, "Yes. I've just been working real hard." And the professor said, and his name was Professor Farrell. He's asking, he said, "What kind of work do you do?" And head buried, he said, "Niggers work." You could have heard a rat urinate on cotton, a dead silence. And then he said, "Oh my God." And everybody in the room, and I almost commented to him because he wanted to be a Southerner. He just loved the Southerner way. I almost said to him, "I think you made the grade." But I didn't. I said, because not all Southerners feel that way. So I kept the comments to myself. And later the professor called me to his office and he apologized. And he said, "I am so sorry you had to experience that." And he said, "You were so calm. You didn't say it." I said, "Look, I was tempted. This was my senior year. I'm getting out of here." So I feel like telling y'all exactly how I feel now. But I didn't. And like I said, the professor was grateful that I didn't. But it was little things like that. And like I said, there's more to be detailed in the book as to my experience. And like I said, I another thing I would love to share is this. There were three people that whenever we had any type of public gathering, uh, football games, etc., my grandmother, Carrie Anderson Marshall, my great aunt, who was my grandmother's younger sister, Janie Anderson Gregory, and my second grade school teacher, Miss Jenny K. Gillum. I would carry them to all the events, the receptions, whatever, because I wanted the world to know how proud I was of them. I wanted the world to know these are the people who are responsible for me being on this campus. And they had such great times, especially Miss Gillum. The minute she got home, she would get on the phone, call her friends, and tell them, "I was at the president's reception tonight." It made me feel so good. And she would tell everybody, from my understanding, when the word got out that they was going to have a black student or a Negro student on the campus. And she said when she found out it was one of her students, she said, I said, "Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. I live to see this." Because the campus, Newberry College was buying up a lot of property, but they would not sell. And her husband would tell the buyers or whoever, would tell them, "I'm not leaving because I want to stay here until I see a Negro person enrolled in that campus." So they did get to see this. And another thing I didn't realize or didn't know till many, many years later is that there was a security, for lack of a better word. They knew I was being, people were protecting me from the minute I left out my grandmother's yard and arrived on that campus. I did not know there was a telephone tree that when I left my grandmother's yard, she would make a phone call. And the next person, if I weren't at a certain place at a certain time, then they would come looking. But I never knew any of this. I knew I used to see Miss Gillum's husband, Mr. Andrew. I used to see him on the campus, but I thought he was watching the birds. They were in the trees. And what happened was, if I was in a classroom building, they would give me 15 minutes to show myself 15 minutes because I was probably with the professor. But if my class ended at 2 o'clock and I didn't show up at 2:15, that's why he was on that campus. He was coming to look for me. And when he saw me, he would go back to the house. There was a person that was cleaning the dorm. Her name was Miss Mary Alice. And the dorm was Derrick, called Derrick Dorm. When I walked into Derrick, we used to watch soap operas. At that time, everybody rushed out of class, and there was a certain room we went to in the dorm for the soap operas. We'd be all on the bed, laying on each other. And Miss Mary Alice, Miss Mary Ann, she'd be dusting that banister when I walk in. And I could stay up there 4 hours. And when I come down, Miss Mary Ann still dusting that banister. And we would see Miss Mary Ann on the floor. I think it was 2 or 3 floors. And she knew exactly what room I was in. And you see her go by, she'd stick her head in. Y'all looking at that soap opera? Had no idea she was there making sure I was safe. That was her role. And like I said, it was many years that they shared. I said, why did y'all tell me? They said, because you would have become complacent and dropped your guard. So as long as you didn't know we were there, you were alert. You were watching your back. Said, but if we told you we were there, you would have felt too comfortable, and one of us might not have been there. So we could not let you know. I said, oh my God, I suffered. I went through all this drama, and you all knew and could have. But I'm glad they did, because, like they say, it was something that you needed to experience. You needed to experience it. And going back to with Miss Marianne, the third time when something was said, we were watching a soap opera. And at that time, the civil rights movement was happening. And of course, they would preempt the soap operas at the time. Excuse me. At the time, Dr. King would be marching. And so everybody had gathered in the room, and I think it was Days of Our Lives. We were looking at that. So somebody came in and she was late. She said, yeah, what's happening? What's happening? And the person who lived in the room, she said, we don't know. We don't know. All them damn niggas marching. And then she went, oops. I said, okay. She said, I didn't mean you. I said, but you said it. Whether you meant me or not, you said it. And I never did go back to that room to watch the soap operas. I could not, because that let me know what she was really thinking. I know what you were telling me, but then when you show me, you know, but it was little incidents like that. Um, I'm trying to think of another situation.
Let me pause. I want you, knowing that this experience had benefit, but the benefit sometimes wasn't positive for you, that you're still carrying the weight and the burden of the grief that this situation puts you in the middle of. And as you think about that, we think about doing the hard things in life. The scripture that comes to mind is one that we sometimes say, but then we kind of don't quite say it and grasp it correctly. All things work together for good.
Mhm.
It's for good according to a plan, but sometimes the working together and the good that comes is at our personal expense. How do you reconcile that spiritually? How do you reconcile that with your place in life, your assignment in life? How do you, if someone is saying, well, goodness, why would I go do the hard stuff? Look at what happened to you, and it's left you with this burden of pain, even though good may have been affected by that. How do you encourage someone to go and do those hard things in life that end up being their path when the potential for harm is there? Martin Luther King, we celebrating him because he was killed. because he was committed to doing this work. That was his path. How would you give encouraging words to people who are already struggling with doing or finding their purpose, to encourage them to follow their path?
Well, I would say to them that it's God's plan. We have choices, and I usually reference Jonah and the whale. God had a plan for Jonas. Jonas didn't want to do it. He didn't want to follow the plan. And finally, after being thrown into the whale, he yielded, and he could serve God's purpose. And the outcome was that it was better for the world because he did what God asked him to do. And I thought that initially that I wound up at Newberry College because of the um, because of what occurred between my grandmother and myself. But then I realized that was God's plan from the very beginning, was for me to have enrolled and endured what I had to do. I can talk about it now. I can share things that happen now. But for a long time, I couldn't. People would ask me, well, we want you to come and talk about your experience at Newberry College. No, like I said, I can talk about the good, the bad, but the ugliness overwhelmed the good and the bad. And I, like I said, when I was at Newberry College, I was there by myself for 3 years. In one of my position as an educator in the classroom, I was the only Black person for 3 years. And I guess that experience at Newberry College had prepared me for the workforce. Because nowhere in the world that, for some reason, I felt that the civil rights movement and everything, that we had arrived. But even today, it's quite evident that if we're not vigilant, that we're going to repeat, history is going to repeat itself. And it's going to be worse than it was when we were coming up, or when we were experiencing the racism, etc. And not everybody is all bad or racist, but it's out there and it's quite evident. And a good
I
example.
think
Go ahead.
I think that is a real powerful statement. In other tragedies that we've had in the world, we see people coming away with the never forget. Let's not forget. And part of that is not to, I think the intention of that is not to re-traumatize people, because sometimes that can happen if you're just remembering. But I think the aim of that, the intent at the heart of that, is about, we can't forget, because if we forget, then we're prone to return there. And I
If we,
think what you just said about, if we don't remember what it's cost, remember the pain and the loss that we've suffered already, that I think we run the potential of going back. And I think what you assessed is accurate. If we go back there, it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse. We'll feel this hurt in a whole new way. The world has become a much more violent place. The kind of guns that they have available, the kinds of weaponry that we have now on a global scale, just in that time from the 60s, we're almost 50 years past 1966. And that if we forget that we have so much to lose, we've already suffered great loss. And I think your story is about, in order for us to have the progress that we have had, it has cost us. You have personally bared the weight of some of that pain that it has cost us. And I'm grateful for your willingness to bear that pain. But at the same time, we want to make that pain worth something. We want to change so that it's not in vain. And I think that is part of my personal takeaway is we've suffered because of our racism.
Mhm.
In this particular case, the racism, but also the evil, the things that our heart has us to do when we move out of loving relationship with each other. And that's important. That's the work of the church, regardless of the denomination. That's the work of our faith community to say, if we don't change that, we're
And
going to go down the same road.
and 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 the sweetness of it is the community, how the community was there from the time I put on that campus until I arrived back to my grandmother's. And we didn't know in some of the interviews that we're doing for the book, things to me that I'm going like, God. For example, this is after I graduated, I put into my teaching career, my own little world. Received a phone call from one of the professor's wife. Her name was Wilma Riggs. This is Wilma Riggs. Now the Riggs and I had a very good relationship through his daughter-in-law, or future daughter-in-law. I was welcome to his house, could have stayed over, that type of relationship.
Mhm.
I worked together later in a school system. After I started, did you ever wonder why nothing happened? Man, I said,
Something is happening with your signal because all of a sudden your vocal got real choppy, like the internet's doing something weird. You guys having bad weather?
No, it should be
This may
okay.
be a moment.
Is it
It
any
may have just been a moment.
okay? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. So it was just a moment. I just wanted to stop her because that speech was getting real choppy. Okay, continue.
and she asked me why did I what did I ever wonder? And I told her yes. I said, and this was maybe like 5 or 6 years after graduation. And and what it was, I didn't realize how ill she was. And she was trying to share something with me. And she said, I've got a lot I want to talk with you about. And she said, come down and bring your tape recorder. And lo and behold, during the conversation, she said, I'm going to tell you part of it. She said, a threat went out. The word went out that if anything happened to you at Newberry College, not only would the college be burned, the town of Newberry would burn. Not only would the town, but the entire state of Newberry would burn. And so I'm thinking, well, she's just a little old, and that's what she probably was thinking. And by the time I was had said, okay, I'm gonna go down and take my tape recorder and listen to her, she passed, she transitioned, and I missed the opportunity. So I never did think anymore about what she said. And sometimes later, maybe about 10 years after she had made that statement to me, and after my husband and I had divorced, I was dating this gentleman who was 25 years older than me at that time. And my son, Lamont, we were visiting with him. And somehow we started talking about my experience at Newberry College. And I said to my son, I said, Lamont, I said, did you know that I stated to him what was stated to me? And he said, yes, mama. Like somebody gonna really burn down something because you were there. And this gentleman, his name was James Hare Bellinger. He was looking out the window and he said, your mother is not lying. That lady did not lie. And so we stopped and we said, what do you mean? He said he was true. And he was a member of the Masonic order. And so he said to me, he said, we had heard that there was a Negro, a black lady that was going to enroll in Newberry College. And we had heard that they were going to allow her to enroll, but she would not graduate. She would enroll, but and he said we got together with kerosene cans and torches, and we marched to the governor's house, to the governor's mansion, and we carried. He said we didn't ask for an appointment. We had the kerosene cans and the torches, and we told. He said we didn't know you from Adam's house, cat. Had never seen you, never met you. He said, but we were so tired. We were just tired. And we left the kerosene can and the torches, and we told the governor, if anything happens to her, anything, there will no longer be a state of South Carolina. So we didn't follow that up because I was about to become scared. I was about to become afraid. Even though that information was many, many years later that we received it. So in gathering data or information for the book that we're writing, in the process of writing, I talked to another gentleman by the name of Ned West. He was one of the individuals. And Mr. Ned said the same thing. He's 80 some years old. And he said, we didn't know who you were. He said, all we know is there was a woman up there going to Dewberry College, and they had said that she would not graduate. And he said, I was right there with them, marching with my kerosene. And he said, we left the kerosene can at the governor's office on his desk, along with the torch. And I said, so now we're trying to, what's the word I want to say? We're trying to see if, we're trying to get it validated. And I remember asking an elderly representative if he knew anything about it. And he said, just leave it alone. Don't stir it up. And when he told me that, I said, oh, I got to look into it now. I've heard that statement 3 times. And the first time I heard that there would be a burning was from a white person, a white woman. It wasn't from a black person. It was confirmed or stated again by these 2 people. And Mr. Ned is still alive. And I think we have a recording of him sharing that story again. I have to go back and look into the resources and see. But to hear something like that, and then when I said I asked this person who may have known about it at the time, and he said to leave it alone, just let it go. I said, no, there's some validity somewhere. I can't see them just making this up. I really can't. So.
All right. I think we've got enough content. As we encapsulate this, are there any closing thoughts that you would have to our spiritual community? Any charge to our circle of faith, our spiritual community?
Any a mission that
Yeah.
we must continue?
Yeah. The thing that I like to say is that when God has a plan, He's going to carry it out. You may not know it's His plan. Things happen, and you say, "Well, I can't do this. I don't know what this is all about," and it will be revealed to you later. So when I enrolled in that campus, when I applied, and as I said, we weren't very serious about it. I mean, hey, my grandmother said, I was applying just to get her upset. I'll show you. You want me to stay here where you can harass me, and I'll show you. I'll just stay on the campus. And she said to me, well, go ahead. They're not going to take you anyway. Go ahead and apply. Didn't know that was God's plan all the time. From the very beginning, we thought we were just being obstinate with each other. Mm-mm. When I look back, man, that was God's plan. Because even in my work experience, who would have thought after the civil rights movement, the marches and everything, that you would be working in an environment and still be the only Black person that's working there. And I remember, and I give credit to the NAACP. When I graduated, I applied for a teaching position in Newberry County, as did other students at that time. So the pastor, Galden, came to me and said, Miss Anderson, I was Anderson at the time, no, Glasgow, we had just gotten married. He said, we understand that you haven't been hired in the school district. I said, yes, sir. I said, it's getting close. I said, but he said, well, how was did you pass the teacher's exam? I said, I had an A. I said, I had over 1,000 points. So I said, yes, I was certified as a teacher, graduated, met all the criteria. So he said, well, do you mind if the NAACP help you out? I said, sure, let's go. We went to the Superintendent Watkins' office, and Reverend Gallen, he asked the secretary, he said, if he's not in, we'll be back, and we'll continue to come back until we meet with him. And so fortunately, he was in. When we went in, and Pastor Galden said to him, he said, this is Miss Glasgow. He said, I know who you both are. I know who you are. And his arms was folded. He didn't ask us, have a seat or anything. And so Reverend Pastor Galden said, well, we're here to find out why Miss Glasgow doesn't have a position. You've hired filled all the other positions with the graduates of Newberry College. And he said, oh, she has a position as a teacher's aide. He said, first she would have to work under the white teachers as a teacher's aide, and then that would determine whether or not she could teach in the classroom. Mm. And that sounded, it was a job to me. And Pastor Galden said, oh, no, we can accept that. She is not the first Black graduate of Newberry College to come in the classroom as a teacher's aide. And I'm thinking to myself, I need a job. I got to eat. But I trusted him. I had faith. 3 days later, I had a job in Batesburg, Leesville. And so I say that to say this. If you trust in God, you don't have to accept something that you're not comfortable with, a position. Although, I would have been, I would have accepted it because I needed a job. But Pastor Galden had a higher faith. Understand what I'm saying? I'm glad God sent you all kind of guys. You can believe it or not. When you're trying to make a decision, and it's up to us. We have choices. He doesn't force anything on us. We have choices. And it's up to us to make that decision. Because as I said, I almost said to Pastor Galden, and when we got outside, I almost said to him, you know what? I don't mind being a teacher's aide.
I was going to put this meat on the catfish. Oh, yes. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, I apologize. But I'm so glad that I was steadfast and that the NAACP intervened, because at that time I was not a member of the NAACP. I just wanted to be a peaceful person. We didn't, but after that, I knew why it was so important to become a member. And he went to plead my case. It didn't matter to him whether or not I was a member. They just wanted to make sure that we as a people deserve better, and that it was up to us to receive that which was for us. And that was equality.
Very good.
Other way the community intervened.
So it's the individual work, but there's the underlying theme, that community, that what we do becomes that. It becomes the spiritual and divine guidance that puts us in the right place, even when we don't recognize it. But it's also that the work is all of our work, that we share in that, sometimes in little ways, sometimes in big ways. It was the prayer, it was the phone calls, it was the encouragement, it was the support, it was those who had more faith than you that helped you to be in situations to minimize the cost. And I think that too is part of the message. I think we've got enough information.
Okay,
I'm going to.
let me share one other thing, and this is important too, very significant. As I said, the only transportation we had in my family was what we call buck and bend. And we know buck and bend meant you walked. We walked everywhere we went. And my freshman year, during the fall season, I walked to the campus every day. And we got somebody who's calculating the mileage. So we will know. We got pictures of my house and the route to the college. And sometimes when people hear that, they say, "Oh my God, you really wanted a college education, did you?" I said, "Yes." And fortunately, after that, I was able to purchase a bicycle so I could ride the bicycle during my remaining years. But in the wintertime, it was too cold to ride the bicycle. And we had a gentleman by the name of Tom Hare who owned Hare Taxi Service. And he told my grandmother, he said, "I will take her in the wintertime, no charge." Well, my grandmother was very proud. She said, "Oh no, got to give you something for gas." And he told her, "Just give me $5 a week for gas." So the entire 4 years, when the weather became cold or rainy or whatever, inclement weather, Mr. Tom Hare was right there. Mr. Tom Hare carried us over, to the events at the college. As I said, whatever event that they had for the parents, he would take my grandmother, myself, and my great aunt to the college, and we would meet at Miss Gillum's house and walk across there to the president's house. If the president's house was too far away or whatever, he would, all of us would get in the cab and he would give us a ride to where our destination was. So it was those kind of things in the community. Like I say, we knew probably what taxi fare would have been. And my grandmother was too proud to not give something. That's the way we were in those days. We didn't want to take anything uh, without giving back or paying a fee or something. We didn't want handouts. We didn't accept handouts. We worked for whatever we received. We wanted the opportunity to work for it. So that was that made me feel, wow, she really believes in me.
Very nice. I think I've got quite a bit of content. Here's what my next steps are going to be.
Okay.
I probably won't start till in the morning. Let me just be honest with you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that and edit that down. So I'll have several things that I'll be able to give you back. One, I'll give you the whole interview because there's bits and pieces that you may want to use in different arrangements at different times. And what I'll do is I may do 1 or 2 mock-ups of an edited version, and then I'll send you those links so that let's say I'm going to shoot to have those to you by Wednesday evening.
Mm-hmm.
If something happens and I can't meet that, I'll let you know, but that's what I'll shoot for. I don't have anything on my schedule that's pressing, that's a firm, commitment, so I have the time. And then we'll look at it and make sure, see if there's anything else you want me to edit it. Because sometimes, when you edit the story, I'll put some pieces together that fit well and see if we get it to about the presentation time for service for Sunday. And then also you'll have several videos that you can use in different places on social media. What I usually do with our service stuff that I record is I usually put it on YouTube so that people can always just send the link out. You know, you can put it on social media and other things. That's kind of what I do with videos and things. And then, so that's the stuff to get us ready for service. And then what we'll do on, what I'll also do is I will go back and look at it once I edit it. Usually we do several things that match up with the service to keep the theme. We usually do a candle lighting and a candle extinguishing, our chalice lighting and extinguishing. And that's usually a quote or a sermon or an excerpt from something, some sort of just words of inspiration that tie into the theme. And we usually choose music that connects with the theme of the service. And so what I'll do is after I kind of have time to think it through, I usually go and, you know, it's just, it's random sometimes. It's wherever I feel led to, you know, it's, seeing what my inner Sha-na-na tells me feels good. And sometimes I use sacred music, but I use a lot of secular music too, that I feel like has good messages, because I feel like the truth can be in a whole lot of places. We believe that. And then, so that's what I'm going to do for church service. And then we'll be ready for Sunday, where you'll come and we'll talk. And if there's any other words of inspiration, then we'll put that video in during that message time. But I'm going to do something else. And this is one of those, you can take it or leave it because it's free. But some of the work I do is about healing. Anyway, there were several things that you talked about. And one of the things that's part of my work, is why I retired, moved to Ecuador. So I got time to do this work more and more. And that's about healing. And so what I'm going to do, I was looking while you were talking, I've got a couple of taped training sessions about this. It's a writing process. And I've got one that some of my associates walk through, but I want you to take some time. I want you to take 2 hours out of your life. Mm-hmm. And I want you to watch that video, if you will, because I think it might have some value to you as you are pulling up stuff. I'm a firm believer. If you pull it up, it may re-traumatize you if you don't know how to process it and deal with it. And there were several of the major life traumas. Trauma can be big or small. When our values are conflicted, we got trauma. And it could be a comment that someone made. You know, it's the football game and someone says and you know you're talking about you. Or it's the big trauma. It's the rape. It's the violence that we see. It's some of the big boulders. But I began to find ways for us to deal with that. And it's discipleship. It's the how do we do renewing of the mind. If the mind has been twisted and damaged because what we expect to be treated, and that's loving, and we expect to be treated with love and dignity and respect. And when that doesn't happen, we get rewired. We pick up the defenses. We pick up that hurt. We carry it with us, and it festers, and it becomes poison in various areas of our life where we can't live our fullness. And so I am going to share that with you, and it's like free advice. You can take it or leave it. But I would be remiss for you to come and give to us. And I know that I get something that may be of benefit to you, and I don't give it in return, because that's the give and take. That's the give and take that you just talked about in your life, where there was a give and take. It's the give and take of your grandmother saying, you've given something to me. I want to give something in exchange, and I want to share that with you. So I'm going to send you that link, and you can do whatever you want to with it. If you want to talk about it afterwards, I work with people on going through those processes. It's a storytelling process. It's where you learn ways to tell your story in ways that actually heal you, and process those things that sometimes get stuck in the attic of our mind and our hearts. And then we carry that pain forward. And so it's a tool for me personally. Because I believe if it's a solution, it got to work for me. I can't tell you, here's how you get some salvation. And you say, well, Lorana, have you used it for yourself? Well, no, it's got to work for me. I'm not one of those kind of pastors that I'm going to tell you something that ain't working for me. That's foolishness. Yes, this is all you need to do, and you can This is stuff that I know has worked in my life, as I have had to look at the mirror and say, what's the baggage you carrying that's slowing your life down, that's keeping you from being your full potential. And it's the hurt that happens. Some of it by our own doing, but a whole lot by other folk doing it to us when they aren't acting in love. And so I'm going to send that to you and encourage you. Spend the 2 hours, get you a journal and go through the steps with them. Take any one of these incidents and go through the steps and see if it may not give you some value and some tools so that as you go through digging up your stuff, that when the stuff comes up that has the potential to re-traumatize you, that you may have an alternate way of thinking through it, an alternate framework that may take you through the thought process of it in a way that helps you to get the freedom from it. These are tools that have been transformational in my life. And part of the work that I do outside of with Newberry is with Repioneering Church. And part of it is, if church ain't healing us, if church isn't helping us have that transformation, then it's not doing its first job. Its first job is to help us remove everything that keeps us from living our purpose fully. And the hurt that we pick up in life is part of why we don't live our potential. It's the fear and insecurities you and me talked about when we talked before about what's taking you so long. What's the holdup? My fears, my insecurity. Well, let's work on that. And then on the note of encouragement, I don't know if I told you about my 92-year-old friend, Jeannie. Did I tell you about Jeannie? I met Jeannie. I moved here to Ecuador a little over a year ago. And they have, most people are retired. They're a little bit older than I am. And so they have people that come down to help you plan your finances, or people that want to sell you insurance, these Americans that come down here and need help because, we need it. And I was sitting across the table from a lady, and she was, at the time, she was 91 years old. Now, she's an older white lady she was last living in Washington State. And they've moved here also. We all kind of knew here. She's been here a little bit longer. And we began just getting to know each other. We sit across the table at this free breakfast and we hear about this insurance that we know we need. And so in talking, she told me about this book she's been working on. I said, well, how long have you been working on it? She said, 15 years. And I said, can I be honest with you? Because if you don't want me to be, I won't be. I'll just keep my mouth shut. And she said, well, yeah. And I said, can I really be honest with you? Because my work is about why folk ain't living their purpose. I said, is it something you really want to do? She said, yes. Is it important to you? Why is it important to you? She said, I just want to finish it for me. I'd like to finish it. And my friends in my writing group and my grandchildren. And I just want to do it. I said, okay, well, let me just be honest again. You're 91 years old. When you going to start? When you going to finish this book? When you going to finish? It's sitting on the shelf. When are you going to finish it? And as we went on to talk, because I didn't budge off that, I said, if you want it to be finished and you are 91 years old, realistically, let's just talk serious, cut the BS, keep that for somebody else. I don't have no sugarcoating. If you really want to do it, what's the probability of how much time you got to delay? This, how long you planning on living? You're 91. Let's just be honest. She says, I want it done. I said, what's stopping you then? She said, a manuscript's done. I said, what's stopping you? Well, I need to edit it. And her son chimes in and says, she didn't have 3 people edit this book. I said, what's stopping you? She says, I don't know how. I don't know how to take a book and finish it and get it published. I said, I do. I said, I finished the book last December. I published it. It's for sale on Amazon.com. I know how to do that. What's stopping you? You want to ask me to help you? Is that what's stopping you? She said, would you? I said, I'm retired too, girl. I got time. I said, but I can't do your part of the work. I said, I tell you what, whenever you get that out, I want to go over it one more time. I said, that's fine. Take your time. This is your life. But these are points of connection where my life could help you. My purpose in life is to help people live their passion and remove the fear, guilt, and insecurity that's standing in their way. So this fits into my life's purpose, and you want to finish the book. I said, but I can't do your work. I said, when you get done editing it and you are comfortable, you call me. I'll have my computer and I'll wrangle up a bus and ride on over to your house, and we'll design a cover and we will get it edited. And you watch, it's going to be easy. She says, but the printing company and I got to get an agent. I said, girl, technology has taken all of that away. And do you know what she did? She came over. I did a late Thanksgiving dinner this year and had a whole bunch of folk over. And she whispered to me, she says, I'm done editing it. I'm ready. I said, as soon as my company leave, as soon as your company leave, I'm coming over. My company left on a Wednesday. I messaged her, company is gone. She said, would you like to do it tomorrow? And on the Thursday after Thanksgiving last year just ended. On the Thursday after Thanksgiving, I went over to her house. And by Thursday evening, her book was published. And she was messaging her grandchildren to buy her book. I went over to her house this past week, and she had ordered. It take a long time to order stuff from the United States and get it here to Ecuador. She had ordered a book. I think she paid a whole lot to get this book shipped to her. But we sat there and we admired that she is now a published author. But what she said, because we had a follow-up conversation, and she says, I didn't believe in myself. She says, but you believed in me, so I put my trust in you. You believed that I could do it. She said, I didn't even have enough belief in me. Now, this is a lady who is a professionally trained artist and painter. She's been a whole lot of things in her 92 years, but she's a trained artist, and she's intelligent. She's got education. She's been trained in the metaphysics, and she's been trained in Reiki and massage therapy and all these things, but her fears were still there. And sometimes what helps us overcome our fears is having someone else that says, I got a little piece of this, and my little piece may help you do your piece. It ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm just excited because she's done something she's been trying to do for 15 years. And her fears, not her competency, her fears, the book was written, but her fears stopped her. And just someone having faith in her. I got a little bit of knowledge. I can get that thing. I remember again how to do it, but I can stumble through and get that thing done. And so part of what I'm going to share with you is about how sometimes our give and take to each other, this thing called church, where I'm helping you live your purpose and you helping me live mine, is about how we help each other do whatever it takes to overcome those fears and insecurities and the guilt that keeps us from doing what we know we've been called to do. And so I'm grateful that you're still on the road. You're still on the path, working through it, even if it may be hard. Be encouraged. Because if these are words that only you can say, these are lessons that only you can give, that may be part of the benefit that we all get from your experience. Because if you just hold it in as pain, ain't nobody benefiting from that. Matter of fact, other folk will be poisoned in your life because of you know how we act when we got issues. You know how we act when we got issues. We damage other folk, hurt people, it's that kind of thing. But healed people are able to heal people. And so I want you to be encouraged with moving through it.
I've already had, if not the title, the theme. It's there's a Kemetic proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And somehow I want to, but what do we give back to the village? This is how my train of thought is. I want to show that I'm a product of the village, and now it's time for me to give back to the village. We always takes a village to raise a child, but nobody ever says, well, what did you give back to the village as a way of gratitude? So writing this book and going out working in volunteering, this is how I'm giving back to the village. This is why it was so important for me to have those three ladies by my side when I went to any program that was open to the public. It was so important for me to say, these are the people who got me here. I didn't do this by myself. It was by the grace of God, and they were God-fearing. So they worked. Miss Gillum, second grade teaching. Who would have thought at that time when I was in her second grade classroom that I would be the first African-American to enroll in Newberry College? She didn't have that vision, but she lived to see it. She and her husband. Who would have thought when I saw him on that campus that he was ready to do whatever was necessary to make sure I was safe? The lady, Miss Mary Ann, cleaning the banister. And they used to meet with me and speak. You know, we gather around They say you're having a good time, you enjoy yourself. And a lot of times I wanted to tell the truth. I wanted to say, hell no, I want to get out of here. But I couldn't because it was like they were so happy and they lived to see a miracle, I guess you might say, because it just wasn't in the wheelhouse. We did see it. We didn't see the divine plan. And these were the people who were significant this was the village. You know, when you did something in that time, everybody had a part in your disciplinary action. And we need to get back to the village. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
We're accountable to
Yeah,
our community.
where everybody is accountable. Because we're losing our children. Our children are not going to tolerate any of this behavior that we had to tolerate. They're not going to tolerate Jim Crow. I don't care if Dr. Jim Crow is still, I always said there was Jim Crow Senior, Jim Crow Junior, and now Jim Crow III has his doctorate degree. You know, Jim Crow Junior worked on his master's. And it's quite evident now that Jim Crow III is working on his doctorate degree. As far as hatred, Donald Trump, Jim Crow with the doctorate.
I think what you're saying about community is so true. I have had the privilege, one of the historically Black communities, Pleasant Hill community that's in Macon, Georgia. It's one of the first communities, one of those Reconstruction communities that slaves came out of and built Black communities. And if you know the story of the highway systems, when the highway systems came in, many of the Black communities were damaged. They'd cut through them. They run the highway right through the neighborhoods. And this particular community is one of those kinds of communities there in Macon. And when the highway systems have come back in some years ago, back in early 2000s, they were going to come back in and do some work on the highway system. And I was working with a community group. It was two little old ornery senior citizens, one that cussed a whole lot, cussed everybody out, including the mayor. And for 5 years, they fought, and they says, if you come through this community again, you're going to pay the cost, because we didn't have a voice back then to be able to stand up and demand these rights, but we have a voice now. And it's been one of the biggest social justice concessions that Department of Transportation has paid, but it required them. Before they finished construction, there were some marks. If construction came down I-75 and got to a certain point, if this was not done, the entire operation would get shut down. And they required Department of Transportation to fund the oral history collection of this historically Black community, how they made it. I got called in as the historian on that, to go and learn and interview these people. One of the ladies was over 100 years old who still remembered the place where they were able to go down to the river when Lucy Craft, with the Craft family, that was one of the notary kind of rebel rousers of that time, were smuggling slaves to the river. But I learned from that about community. I heard it from them, and we documented, kind of like we're doing today. We documented their stories, and time after time and time again, they talked about the time before segregation, on how these communities worked, and even after, how the little old ladies would gather their money, or they'd have these jobs and be helping this mother to pay that money to send those children to school, or how everyone in the neighborhood was responsible for you, but it was from a position of love. And so if you misbehaved, they stopped you. But they told me, but they also stopped you to find out how you were doing in school, how those marks were when you came home from school, or they'd send things with you that was care and concern. And for me, not being a Southern born person, coming into this, it has helped me to understand what made these communities thrive. People think that Wall Street, Black Wall Street, was a one-time thing. And I said, no, that's how all the communities function. They work together. Those who had, those who didn't, they had an expectation in the communities. You could be down on your luck and we'd make a pallet and we'd stretch the meal, but you couldn't be trifling. There were some values that were about community and about love and support, but accountability with that is part of what I was thrilled to be able to capture, because that generation is dying that has that frame of reference to understand. And so these stories and you telling your story is about how do we preserve these lessons? Because if we don't, then this generation that's coming behind us may not have even the information to know how to get back. And so part of telling these stories is about how did we get over? It was the way that even if you tell them it takes a village and they don't know what a village operates like, because we're so far, we're 3 generations now removed, almost 4, from having an understanding. Because what happened and the demise of this was as they sent those children off to school, oftentimes those children didn't have a community to come back to that would support them. And so that generation oftentimes was the first generation. Now, their children weren't removed because they would go on to the cities and places and they had a place to send their children back. So their children understood some of that value system. But that next generation of children didn't have no grandmama in the country to go back to or in these communities that served as village. And so we're now 3 going into the 4th generation that has no understanding, no frame of reference for the village that you're talking about. That's why it's important to tell your story. They don't understand what that village means because they never had nobody's mama snatch them up and say, that ain't the value system that we know that your mom and daddy have taught you, because that is gone. And so it's so important. If it's memories for you, but when you document those memories, it makes it history. And some of you that have the lived experience from the front line have some wisdom that we will need in these coming generations to piece together the picture of what community was, to be able to help them and build the bridges to get back there. And so even more so, I encourage you, keep going, keep going. I know the struggle that it may bring up, the things that may come back up, but keep going because we need that. If not, how do we get back? How do we get back to a place that we don't know?
If I may share, like you say, I kept thinking about, I need to write this book. And then times would come and say, no, it's not important. People don't want to hear this. Then train us out, write this book. So it was recommended to me, this group in Columbia, Write Stuff. And I called Write Stuff and she was excited. She said, but health issues. And I don't know if I can do it. And lo and behold, here you are. So now the book is written. It's going to be written. Because now I have everything that I thought I was going to have to go out and dig around. And it's right here. So,
ain't that what your Bible say? Oh, hold on. Ain't that what your Bible say? He said it's already there before you even know that you need it. Isn't that what it says? I mean, that's the Lorana chapter 2, verse 3 paraphrase of that. But I think it, in my recollection, I got a little bit of, little bit behind me on that. I got some of that education and whatnot. But I think it says that if you got an assignment, what you need is already there. You just got to be willing to, move your little feet and get in motion. Because he's not going to do that part for you. So I think you're telling me truth. I think you're telling me truth.
Yeah, and I've already started the manuscript. I mean, I started writing. I kept changing, erasing. I said, why am I doing this? Somebody else needs to be doing this. Let me just get the thoughts down. And somebody, they'll do that. And now she's come up with the computer and everything.
Can I add?
Yeah.
So now you practice this. You can also record it.
Yes.
You can then talk to the thing and record it, and that can be taken and put into words. You can take it and read it through the computer, and it'll create the transcript for it. So understand that sometimes that's your fears and insecurity talking to you. And if you can just for a moment say, this is my fear and insecurity talking, wait a minute, what do I know I'm supposed to be doing? Because if you align with that, that'll get you to the end. That's to keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on the goal, and it's finishing well. It's finishing the race that you have, finishing well. And if this is part of your assignment, you don't want to leave here with leaving your assignments undone. And the Lord will give you enough time and everything you need to do it. You have to be the committed part. You're the hands that's to do the work that he calls you to do. And you're doing it.
Other thing, last night, we had what we call the Black Tie Gala, which is we have an association on Newberry College campus called Newberry College AAA, Newberry College African American Association. And the purpose is to raise scholarship for people attending Newberry College. We had it specified for African American students, but of course you can't do that anymore, you know. So they have it's just our second fundraising, second gala. And lo and behold, two of the attendees, attendants, whatever, were the twins that came during my senior year. Remember I told you that I kept saying they're coming, and they did come, but they were freshmen and I was a senior. So I still could not relate, but yet so happy that they were there. And so when I turned around, they said, I looked at it, they said, here are the twins. We screamed, we embraced. We had seen each other over 50 years, and everybody just stopped and said, what's happening? Why is she screaming? It was just fantastic. It was like, it was a revelation. Get that book now. You got help. You got these twins. It's coming. And others would come up to me and they would say, thank you. And I'm going like, well, I really didn't do anything. But then you look back and you say, well, you put your life on the line. You actually put your life and your family life on the line. But God has sent soldiers, and that those people who said they would burn, whether they meant it or not, the word was out there. God had his shield around you. Because I declare, I walk out my grandmother's yard and I would just say, I had to turn it over to God. I said, okay, God, you got this. If it's meant for me to survive, I will. If it's not meant for me to survive, so be it. That kept me from worrying about somebody coming up behind me and shooting me. I just didn't entertain those thoughts. I had to put them back, that whatever God's will be done. And once I did that, I could walk to the campus. I could ride. And there were times when I knew somebody was following me, because sometimes when I ride my bicycle, I try not to do the same route. I would vary. Even when I was walking, I might go down Lindsay Street today, but tomorrow I'll go down the College Street. I always try to not walk the same way. And now that I look back, reminisce and everything, I know why those things happen now. I understand what was going on in my little mind of survival, my little mind of trying. And I never shall forget, I didn't live on campus. I was a day student. That was the criteria. We didn't know it at the time, but it was revealed later that when they went out recruiting, and they didn't recruit, they only recruited at Galma. They gave us the impression they had recruited in other states, other people, yada, yada, yada. But later we found out that they only recruited at Galma, and that the criteria was it had to be a female. It could not be any males. They did not want any men of color on the campus at that time. So it had to be a Black female. So, and I was not the ones that person that they wanted. I got a person and I got to get her story. Her name is Ave Lindsay. And the recruiters, Newberry College recruiters, came to her house before. The way they got me to enroll is because they had no choice. Everybody else that they went to turned them down because, and I didn't know classism. This was something else that was in the community, was classism. There were a clash between the teachers. Some thought that I should apply and some thought I wasn't good enough because my grandmother was a domestic worker. I mean, she worked as a maid, My father worked as a laborer, so they didn't want that type of person representing them or representing the Black community. They wanted a doctor's, whoever the doctor was at that time, his son, or they wanted the whoever had a profession. So that was something else we were working against was classism. And that came out in one of the interviews because one of the individuals said, we were working on two forces. One was we had to get the white people to accept you, and then we had to get our own people.
Don't hang up before I have a chance.
Okay. Oh, you better come on now because I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm getting, oh, she goes, well, anyway, she had to go get her grandmother. She's got a question to ask. But now, when I look back at another reason that I didn't do interviews was because I get so emotional until my thoughts, my words, and everything just leave. So I got to work on that.
Well, I want to just thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time with me tonight. I'm going to send that link. Matter of fact, I'll send it to Stephanie too, as soon as I can pull that up. And then I will send this out to you. I'll probably text you the link and I'll send it to Stephanie too. So in case you need some help pulling it up. And then we'll plan to talk back later in the week. Once I get that edit done, I'll probably give you a call the next day, give you some time to check it out. And then we'll see and make sure that that's acceptable to you, that you feel like it represents the message that you have.
And
How
then
does that sound?
Yeah, I was worried about how should I dress. And I said to myself, I got to be me. I just can't be formal,
That's what that's how we roll. That's how we roll. That's the easiest. That's the easiest.
Dress up.
I wore this. Okay.
I just didn't feel like going. Well, when you get a minute.
Hold on, let me turn some lights on. The sun has gone down on me. Hold on. We sat here and the sun has gone down on me. We have sunrise and sunset at almost the same time all year long. It's so wonderful.
When you get a minute, Google Newberry College magazine. I get Stephanie to text it to you.
Okay.
I get her to text it. You Google it and you see my attire at that time.
Okay. Okay.
But I just couldn't attire that way for this interview. I don't know why.
No. We very regular. We are regular folk. Trust me. Trust me. And we're very gracious. My church is very giving. I have done church services on the back of pickup trucks in the middle of Honduras. Yes, I have. So we are not those kind of people that put a whole lot of energy in to try to make sure we dictate what you wear and all that. No, ma'am. No, ma'am. Probably because I'm the pastor and I ain't do all that. Because I'm the raggedy one most of the time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. You don't have to worry about. I got your back on that. But if somebody say something to you, you send them to me. If the pastor said, go see the pastor. I'll deal with that one. No. We ain't gonna have that kind of issue at all. At all.
Yeah.
LaRon, ask a
yes,
favor.
ma'am. Yes.
I wonder if it would be helpful because I've just got her set up with a computer to start writing. And I know you did touch on the fact that a lot of this, a lot of trauma. Do you think that she could check in with you on a regular basis and process some of the stuff that she writes?
Check in. I can't commit my time in advance because I don't know what life is like. And I've got some people that I'm working with coaching. And for me to stay balanced, I've got to stay balanced emotionally too. And dealing with trauma has weight. But yes, if she schedules it, then what I can do is make sure that I've got the mental space because part of, life for me and my healing work is balance. And so it depends on the day whether I can stop and do it right then. But if she gives me time, I can calendar where I can clear out the emotional space to be able to hold that space.
Okay.
We're more than happy to do that.
Thank you very much for that. I know that it's easy when we think about our own stories to sometimes overlook things that we may not think are important that are or might be important to other people or are important to the story. And I wondered if maybe you could write down some questions that, if it's okay with me, you wrote down some questions, or just things that you might are curious about her story that you didn't hear today that you think might be really important to bring up.
I'll tell you right off. And this video may help with that. Even the book that I did last year is about telling our stories. You know, the public history part of me, but the personal and the spiritual part is about telling our stories, because that takes the power out of others, of the stuff that we keep in secret. And part of that is about telling stories in a way that even the hearers don't get re-traumatized by, or it minimizes that impact. And part of it is about structuring how we talk. Some of the work that I'm doing most recently is focusing on the process for learning how to think. But that also is about learning how to communicate. Edward de Bono, I don't know if he's a name that you're familiar with, his work called The Six Thinking Hats is like, if I had a stamp of approval to give it, I would give it, because part of it is about organizing the facts, the emotions, the positive and the negative, and then the assessment, the evaluation of this experience, the lessons that you learned, how this experience has helped you, or the message you have to take. But it talks about taking these things in pieces in a structured format. And when I came across this, that process was about how to communicate clearly from the creative side of our brain. But when I learned it, I realized that what he's telling people, this wasn't his focus wasn't on healing, but the process of how we heal this follows the same model. And so part of that is about, if we learn to speak in these ways and think in these ways, it gives us the facts, it helps us to process how it's impacted us and come to the analysis on the other side, but we do it in a way that doesn't cause us harm. And I think that might be some strategy, that six hat process, it's like a compartmentalization process for telling a story that may be helpful, because what you have is, if you took a timeline of your experience, you have all these stories, and one incident is in a bite-sized piece for you to deal with and process for you, so that you don't finish this process damaged by going through the process. You're helping others again, but you want it to be the give and take, where this process helps you heal and gives the story. And so that six thinking hat model might be a format for structuring that's very simple. Tell the facts of the story. Tell us what happened. Now, talk about what you felt. Then the values that conflicted, the values that went against what you believed, and then here's my analysis. And that could be done in a chapter by chapter. As a matter of fact, when I did the book I did last year, I did this literally. And I then took the journal writings and the processing, and that became the book. It's 13 of those stories from my healing journey, but using this process of storytelling, so that the trauma that I'm going through, or that I'm talking about, doesn't traumatize somebody when they read it. No. We want to make sure that we're causing good and not causing harm. And so that compartmentalized way, I think, is a really good way for telling stories. It's simple. Matter of fact, I'm going to send you, I got a tab opened up right now with his stuff on it. Do you prefer or video information? Do you like information that's in the written form or in a video form?
Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Do you prefer written information or video? What's easier for you to process?
Probably written, because
yes,
I can see the spell. I mean, the video would be good, but then I would be wondering, how does he spell his name? You know.
All right, I'm gonna send you a link,
and we can always find
if you Google his name, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I probably watched 100 of them, not that many, but close.
It's written in the written.
Let's see. I'm gonna send you a link. But that would be a way that I could think, especially because this is kind of like an unpacking process. This format helps you get your thoughts. The format helps you think through one part of it at a time, you know?
It's 71%.
I'm going here.
And something else. Stephanie's mother is a writer too.
Oh,
And
nice.
Yeah, her mother Teresa can help me with some of this also.
Yeah, she's committed to helping with that already.
Excellent. Excellent. Excellent.
Like
Okay, I just sent
not
you,
available.
Stephanie, I just sent it to your Facebook because I think I messed up your email when I sent the email the first time today with the link. So I sent it there, and then you can forward that, email it to or distribute that however. But that's his book on Six Thinking. That's the digital version of Six Thinking Hats. And there's some like 15-minute videos on YouTube that are excellent, that give you kind of the framework. And that may be a really good way to unpack your stories. Make a list of all the incidents that you want to talk about or that you can remember. Just make a list of them. Give a short title on deciding to apply to Newberry. That's a whole story.
Yeah.
Getting accepted to Newberry. That's a whole story. Deciding to go to Newberry. That's a whole story. My first day, orientation day at Newberry. That's a whole story where you can take and tell what happened and then process it and get to the culmination of that. And that gives you kind of chapter by chapter of taking someone through your journey. And then once you've decided which stories you want to include, now you can go back and look at this in its totality and give a summation. And that may make this a very easier to compartmentalize, because if you look at it as a whole, it's a big boulder. If you look at one incident, could you tell the story? And you could do this by video, get your video, tell the story of deciding to apply. And then you just focus on that. You put blinders on and say, I'm just going to talk about, let me reflect on that. And you just tell that story.
Okay.
And then getting accepted. And you just tell that story, because sometimes that lets your mind just deal with one thing at a time, because if not, it'll all swim and swirl. Mm-hmm. And then once you get done, now you can sit back and merge it all together. Now, what is its experience? Because some of what you said was, I want to leave a story for y'all to understand. We can't go back here. Or these are the highlights that I want you to get. We got to go back to a village. This is my story of how the village helped me do this hard thing by myself. This is how you can do hard things by yourself. You got a village. You got folk watching your back, and you don't even know they're watching your back. They probably try to catch up with you. Why should go a different way each day? We got to track her down. This is how we do more than we can do by ourselves when we do it together. Mm-hmm. This is how there's a whole bunch of lessons. This is how what you need is already there for you. You got to be willing to take the step. This is working through your fears, going to college. Mm-hmm. Even in spite of the things that happen, and writing the story about it, working through your fears, still working through some fears. This is life damages you sometimes, but life, even with damage, still has value in your life and your experience. Like whatever your assessments are, I'm a pastor, so there's 17 sermons in that right there. But to be able to take it in bite-sized pieces, because how do you eat an elephant? What that you told me, one bite at a time. Isn't that what you told me? Wasn't that the sermon you gave me? Wasn't that the sermon you gave me? If it was good for me, guess what? It's good for you too. One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
One bite at a time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Uni. Thank you for taking the time out and being willing to push past whatever obstacles were in your mind and in your way to get here today. And I'll get this edited and to you. And we look forward to sharing this message on Sunday. Okay.
Okay.
All right, now I'm putting y'all off my phone because I got to call my grandson before he go to bed, because his mama's serious about that bedtime.
Yes,
and I got to stand and call with my grandson so Grandma Blanket can give him his good night kiss and snookums.
We shutting down. Wait.
Tell Paige.
Anything else for me, Stephanie?
Yes,
Any other
ma'am.
questions?
Yes.
Wait,
Hi.
Yes, you have more questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't. I think we're great. Thank you so much for your insight. You thought of some things that I haven't thought of before.
Yeah.
That was great.
And like I said, Teresa, she's committed to it too. Her mother.
I talked to somebody today. Somebody you sent my way. Who did you send to me? She used to be the dean.
They're the ones who got me to come out of my shell. I
had a lovely talk with her too, and told her that she's invited on Sunday. and that she's going to keep encouraging you. I'm going to encourage you. We're doing a teamwork high five.
Okay. All right.
All right. You guys have a great evening. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Hotel.